Hello and welcome back this evening, Realty Pros, to another week's mastermind. We are always excited about the trainings that we have here at Porterhouse. And we have someone very special with us. I mean, an expert in his an expert in his line of expertise. Isn't that something? Mr. Curtis Price. And so he is going to be presenting for us this evening. We want to thank you, sir, for joining us, and we want to thank you for sharing this evening. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. What's going on, everybody? How's everybody doing tonight? Good. Wonderful. Well, happy Thursday. It's always nice for me whenever I can get out to the office. I'm not able to get out as often as I really used to, but I always love coming out to the office and then talking real estate, talking shop. So today, I'm going to kind of really be looking at the buying process, working with buyers. I did the boot camp a few weeks ago, so I'm going to quickly kind of touch on the slides that I went through, not all of them, kind of go through some key points that I covered in the boot camp. And then what I'm going to do is actually pull up the buyer consultation, so the presentation itself, and then kind of like just walk through the actual buyer consultation. And then once we've kind of gone over that, basically at that point, we can do questions. Feel free at any time, to stop, ask me a question, and let me pull up. Is my screen, am I being shared? I am. Okay. And I guess I have to cast. Okay. It's not. All right.
While Curtis is pulling up the screen, also wanted to notice that Winifred has joined us this evening. Welcome to you. Okay, there we go. Welcome to you, Winifred. So we're going to turn it over to Curtis.
Okay. All right. Cool. So converting leads to buyers, which is a lot of topic or a lot of training in and of itself. I personally am going through kind of like this journey of rediscovering how I can generate more leads, totally outside of my sphere of influence. A few months ago, I actually had the opportunity. I went to Las Vegas to work with a solar company, and they door knocked. And in one weekend, I knocked on over 130 doors between Friday evening-ish until Sunday afternoon. I knocked 130 doors. What really impressed me with the experience was the aggressiveness, the lack of I don't care. We knocking these doors. It was cold. I had layers on. So I had actual like thermals on underneath my pants, hoodies. It was really cold. But a few of the doors I knocked, the homeowner or the actual person that answered was a renter. And so my real estate hat kind of like was like, oh, well, why are you renting? I mean, this is a $3,000 a month easily. Some of these homes were nice properties, but it was really the aspect of door knocking and kind of taking that fear out of me, So in a way, I had these 2 trips, and so really looking at incorporating door knocking into my kind of a daily thing. So leads are going to come from all different types of sources. Your sphere is kind of the easiest. It's your sphere of influence. But we can get leads kind of from anywhere. You can get a lead at a gas station, you get a lead anywhere. The main thing though is to get that lead and actually have them at a closing, right? So you can have all the leads all you want. If no one's buying or selling a property, you just have a lot of friends, okay? So in order to kind of get the lead into the closing table, there's the whole series of things that's going to happen. First thing, we need them pre-approved. We want to know exactly how much home they can afford. This is going to make it easier for the buyer themselves, but it's also going to make the job a little easier on you, the realtor. You know exactly how much property they can afford. Once we have the property or the actual buying amount, the golden ticket established, what we want to do is go into brokerment. That's kind of like your nucleus, your brain of your real estate operation. And you're going to create your agency documents. So they've been pre-approved. You've kind of set up your actual buyer consultation. And before the consultation, you're going to go into brokerment and you're going to actually enter in John, Jane Doe. You can put the brokerage address as the property address of the home they're going to buy, because we don't know the property yet, but just to create the account. You're then going to open up your agency docs and essentially going to fill that all out so it's ready. You don't have to send that. You're not sending that yet, but excuse me, it's ready, locked and loaded, prepped, so you can go. Yeah. So everything's locked and loaded. You meet them at the office. You meet them at Panera. Meet them at their house, wherever you got to go. Meet them for the buyer consultation. You're going to go through the actual buyer consultation. What that is going to do is it really sets the stage for what is about to happen. It also is going to ensure that you are the professional. You're the expert. Doesn't matter how long you've been in real estate. You took the 60 hours. You passed the courses. You are an expert in real estate. HGTV watchers are not experts in real estate. Might be really good in design and, you know, have an idea of the kind of home they want, but they're not licensed realtors. You are. So the buyer consultation really sets the stage as you being the professional and you being the agent. So the agency agreement kind of touched on that. So that has all been kind of filled out prior to, and that's all ready for after the buyer consultation that you're going to send over to them. So I really want to get to the actual slides of the actual buyer consultation itself tonight. So went through, had a great buyer consultation. Now you kind of have explained to them the 10-3-1 formula we follow at Porterhouse. They're going to fight over the 10. They're going to then really fight over the 3. And then now these are the 3 homes that we're going to actually go out and look and start shopping. So at the end of the buyer consultation, I'll get a little bit more detailed information. I just did a consultation last week. Prior to that, I already had the buyer set on what I like to refer to as casting a really big net to get so that they can start to get their appetite wet. You know, they can start to get an idea what the market's doing, how much these homes are, how much homes are in different areas. They just start to get a feel for what's happening in the real estate market. After the buyer consultation, now I'm going to take that net and I'm going to laser beam that net. I'm going to make it a lot more specific based on what do they want? What do they really want? So they might have had time to see that because I'm in Laurel, it could be Laurel and Bowie. Prior to the consultation, though, it could have been Laurel, Bowie, Upper Marlboro, Columbia. You know, you could have had all these different areas that they were thinking about buying, but now they specifically know, birthday girl, that this is where they want to be. So I'm going to make that search specific to that, right? So we're going to schedule our showings. We're going to go out. Within that, I always like to have, I believe it's homes.com, have your phone. The technology that we have access to is phenomenal. What you have in your in your fingertips is very powerful. So I'll always have the properties kind of prepped and pulled up, just so that when I walk into the house, I know these are the stats on that house. But you're going to go in, schedule your showings. I always like to arrive at the property. It's really the first one, because if we're looking at two others, we kind of will follow or meet each other after I've locked up the house, and now I'm going to meet you at the second property, right? But the first one, I always want to be early. I do that for a few reasons. One, I just want to turn the lights on. I want to get into the property. I want to make sure that there's not another agent showing the property. That can happen. If the other agent is showing the property, I want to make sure that they kind of put the key in the lockbox. I'll take and get my own key out. I'm also going to leave that lockbox open when I'm viewing the property, but I'm going to lock the door behind me, right? So we're walking through, you're getting feedback. Is this making, I always like to refer to it as the spidey senses. Are you tingling? Does this feel good? You know, is your intuition kind of going off? So follow-up is really just part of the process. We always want to be following up. But after we viewed property, if it is a property that we are going to write a contract on, then I'm going to really then break down what we've talked about in the actual buyer consultation. One of those things is going to be your EMD, because now I need a picture of that check. I'm going to also need to possibly update the lender letter. So that approval letter, and this is just something that a strategy that I do, is if we're going to offer $1.2 million on the property, I want the letter to reflect $1.2 million. You could be qualified for $2 million. I just don't want them to see that you're qualified for $2 million and we're submitting an offer for 1.2. So I reach out to Michael Cooper, whatever lender, hey, just adjust this. This is what we're going to offer on the property, so that they can start working on that document on their end. And a lot of this, I've actually, I still haven't left the property. So I'm sitting in my car. I'm also going to call the listing agent, introduce myself. Are there any offers on the property? Trying to get any information, but also letting the listing agent know that I have a strong, qualified buyer that is extremely excited about making this their new dream home, and that I'll be sending an offer over to you later today. So it's establishing that rapport with the listing agent as soon as we can. Kind of a flashback. I will have called the listings prior to showing. I just want to make sure, is it still on the market? You know, I have shown, and then it's like, it's gone, you know, then it's under contract. And it's like, I wasted my gas, I wasted my time. So I'll call just to be, hey, any offers in? Is there an offer deadline? Because I'm getting ready to show. So preparing the offer. I don't want to touch too much on this, because I really want to get to the actual slides of the buyer consultation. But you're going to generate your CMA, discuss the price, kind of the things that we were just talking about, so that we can get the offer together to write a very pretty, strong, winning offer. I was at a training today, and somebody was like, you know, it's so bad because there was 30 offers, you know, on the property, and no, you know, and my buyer didn't get the property. And I was like, well, you should have wrote a better offer. Yeah, it's not the 30 offers. That's for the listing side. I was like, that's a good problem to have. It's like, you should have, but I didn't want to go too. Just give me my little CU credits and let me keep it pushing. So then negotiating offers. So submitted, things might come back and forth. Do what you need to do. Any strike throughs, make sure that your buyer is initialing on any changes to that original offer submitted. And as well as the seller themselves will have to also initial any changes that have been made. Once you're ratified, I always like to say you can put the champagne bottle in the fridge. We're not popping anything yet. Just you can put it in the fridge though. So the transaction, there's those stages of the transaction. One of the main things is going to be the home inspection. We want to immediately get that rolling within 48 hours. Hopefully we can walk through with our inspector, just so we can get those contingencies like off our back and move the process right along. I also want all my buyers to know that now time is extremely, extremely, extremely important. We need to move with urgency. We have a 30-day countdown. We could kind of tiptoe around before. Once we're ratified, the clock is ticking. So if our lender says, get me the check stub again, get him or her the check stub again. Just do whatever you got to do so we can close within those 30 days. Nobody likes filing extensions, but you will if you have to. So inspection is going to happen. The appraisal, these are things that we'll talk about too within the actual buyer consultation, so that the buyer is really aware of these things. You know, you don't want to go through the process, you're ratified, and now it's like, oh, I have to pay for the appraisal? Like, what? Why do I have to pay for an appraisal? Remember, I told you were going to pay for the appraisal and the buyer consultation. Another thing, actually, with that training that was in, it was interesting. It was a code and ethics training at Velocity Title, and how much, which I'm sure was intentional, Shay and Jasmine put into the actual buyer consultation. Because when you go through the consultation properly, you're checking off all of these boxes that other agents that were in, brokers who, I don't know who everybody was, but you could see them mentioning questions on putting systems in place, or like, oh, we should do that. And then I was just sitting there in my head like, well, this is part of the buyer consultation. So it eliminates and it protects us as the realtors, and it protects the client too. Like, everything is just put out here. This is how it rolls. This is what you can expect. Even showing homes that, steering people from a home, or one point of discussion, which more than likely are referring to the Baltimore area. If the home was dilapidated or lead-based paint, it needs windows. But then in the buyer consultation, if it's a VA or an FHA home approved, you should be already prepping that buyer. I mean, if we want to look at a potential flip or investment property, we can't. This is your first home. Or where are you at as the buyer? If you don't own one home that you live in, you're not going to be buying an investment property. If you did try to buy that investment property, once it starts going through the channel, okay, we're ratified for it, great, but FHA isn't going to approve the loan because it needs to be gutted. So it's the buyer consultation protects us and it saves us time. That's why it behooves you that we do these buyer consultations out the gate before we even open the lockbox. Mm-hmm. Right? Say that again. Mm-hmm. Before we open a lockbox. I really want to say it again. Yeah, I'll say it again before we open a lockbox. Home warranties can be ordered for the buyer. Final walkthrough before settlement. Walk through the property to make sure that the stainless steel refrigerator is still there, hasn't been swapped out for a older refrigerator, which probably though works better than that stainless steel. Make it to settlement. Everybody's happy. The buyer, you letting them know that they're aware of the closing disclosures 3 days prior. You're going to get this information, spelling everything out that you're going to have to bring to closing. Also, really, and this was an interesting thing at the training today, fraud is really growing. Yes. It's really growing. So they might even do another training simply on fraud. So Velocity had a situation, an entanglement, that there was somebody, and this was like fresh, like they just caught it like yesterday. So somebody literally falsified, was a fake, it was a fake buyer. No, it was a fake seller. It was a fake seller of land, and it got all the way to closing. Yep, and he didn't show up. He didn't show up, and they were worried that the person, something happened to him, right? Because they couldn't get him on the phone. They couldn't actually get him to do the ID is what kind of started to trigger things. But his ID was done so well that they were like, even if he walked in, because they couldn't have scanned the driver's license, they probably wouldn't have caught that fake ID. But because Velocity did their due diligence, because the gentleman wasn't answering, they went to the house because they were thinking it might be somebody who's older, passed away. Yeah, like they actually passed away. Because if you're selling, like, where are you at? Like, you have to sign, like, this is it. They got to the door and the owner was there and he was like, I'm not selling it. He's like, that's not me. And so if they didn't do that, that buyer was about to send whatever money, and that would have been a wrap. Yeah. So they were just I forget her first name. I think her last name, Miss Berman, was just commenting on how Christine was just the fraud and how
that happens. That's
yeah.
like that happened in Florida.
Yeah. But it's so letting your buyer know, buyer consultation. When we get to closing, we get close, fraud's happening. Once you send that wire, if it goes to whoever and it ain't supposed to go, you ain't going to get that back. So making sure that the lender's going to also do their due diligence and let them know, like, look, do this, you should be receiving this kind of email from us. But it's just putting them, making them aware, teaching them, letting them know, because you never know what could happen, and if anything would happen like that, it's just unfortunate, for them, because once that money leaves, it's gone.
Can I say something about that?
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, when you're working with your buyers and once they sign, you should have this conversation with them, because a lot of the times they'll receive emails asking for personal information. So it's best to say you should only provide information to your lender. They're not even giving us personal information.
Yeah.
So just to be wary with who's requesting things, they might mistakenly send something that it's not supposed to go to that person, or
Yeah. Now you
can have that conversation with them about who should be requesting information. You can talk about Qualia and then different platforms, but you should have that conversation.
Now you're referring to them signing, like, to be ratified.
I'm referring to any documents at that point.
Right.
If someone's someone may be requesting personal information from them. Well, the lender is the only one really requesting information from them at that point. But once you go under contract, just make them aware that no one, you get these random emails. Oh, it said Porterhouse. Curtis, I thought you asked this, and you just let them know, because emails will come
with 3 R's.
Correct. It'll come across from someone other than who it's intended. So I just kind of bring that to their attention, and they appreciate that. And sometimes they'll say, hey, I got something from this person. But they already know at the consultation, once we go under contract, they know about Qualia, they already know about that. So when they get it, they're like, oh, Angela told me about that. If they get anything else, they need to reach out to the title company or to your agent. Yep.
I had a buyer that there was no problem, but once she got to that place, and then these emails of, like, the wire transfer, it just sparked her, was like, should I be sending this to you? And literally called whatever bank, I don't know if it was Bank of America, but called and was like, hey, who do I need to talk? I want to make sure, because my realtor told me to make sure that this money's going where it needs to go, but yeah, it was just an interesting thing today. It was just like, fraud is real.
It's best to check beforehand. And I think it's probably even, with that being said, I think it's even good to, at the point that you have a ratified contract, before that, who your lender is, but then who the title company is. And so maybe getting them in contact with it so that they can get specific instructions from them as far as how correspondence or any other piece of that transaction is going to go, so that they won't be, thinking that, because we absolutely let them know, time is of the essence. And so they're just thinking, oh, I got this, let me send it back, make sure that you're sending it to that secure site.
Yep. It probably just behooves us that, like, once we're ratified, then it's really like, okay, because the contract is ironclad now. We're ratified. This is the lender. This is the title. Because all that's been worked out now. There's not going to be, random title coming in like, hey, no, these are the players in this transaction from this point until we get the settlement. If anything changes, an addendum will be made, you will be made aware of, but these are the people, you know, that are going to be involved. So yeah, just something to really, just today was just like, oh, wow. And follow up, you know, all the things we're going to do. So I want to pull up quick the actual buyer consultation itself. I highly recommend that all agents, and I meant to look for it because I think Angela always likes when I actually pull up my because I normally bring my printed
Bible.
buyer consultation. No, my home buyer consultation.
That's the Bible.
Because things have changed. We used to have a printed copy and would have the printed copy and turn the page at the table and like, here's the buyer consultation. Now everything's so all digital.
So you don't use the paper anymore?
No. Well, this one I did, it was a Zoom, you know, but I still have mine. I like to feel the book or the, you know, I could never read it. I guess I could read digital material, but I just like
I like
the book. Yeah, the page. Yeah. So let me put this up on the slideshow. So this is essentially now kind of reversing, going back to we have a potential lead. We've set an appointment. So we have our buying consultation set. We're meeting. And then this is what you would actually pull up. I would highly recommend that you print this out. You don't have to print clearly this page out unless you want to. You know, you could. But the more meat and taters of the buyer consultation. So what I tend to do is I'm not going to sit here and be like, the Porters are a husband and wife team. Look up of professional realtors committed to treating you like family. You know, we do not want to just verbatimly read these slides. More than likely, that potential buyer would probably be nodding asleep, would probably be like, get me out of here. I do not, you know.
No, I've been doing it wrong.
But you never know.
Glad I'm here training.
But you never know. Hey, you know, if you get the client at the end of the day and you help them buy their house, that's all that matters. But by printing it, you can kind of like overview this, you know, and I'll let them know that as well. Certain information I really want you to focus in and pay attention to. And then there's just going to be some information I'm going to be sharing with you about my amazing brokerage. And I kind of like will just go through the presentation. So we get here. This is basically about Mr. and Miss Porter. I like the little bullets on the side. It has been said that a good name is far more precious than jewels. So certain things I will kind of like point out. This slide, I really want them to know that I am a licensed realtor in the state of Maryland. There's the website. You can pull me up. There might not be a picture of me, but I am in the registrar. I am a legal realtor. So again, now it's establishing we're the expert. We are a licensed realtor. Some benefits of why you need a realtor. So more of the bullets are kind of what I'll more focus on. Depending also on the client, right? Some people, they might have bought a house prior to. You don't need to be as holding hands. You know, they may not want it, right? So you just want to move and pick up on that particular buyer, okay? Some people want to hear everything. Some people give me the bullet points, give me the meat and taters of it, and let's get to going. You know, let's rock and roll. But, you know, go through. The bullet points are always something that I like to touch on. The wild goose chase. Who wants to go on one of those? Not me. Again, why you need a realtor. This is all kind of setting you up as, again, the expert. You know, why you need me as your realtor. So when we get to this page, I'll go a little bit more into my fiduciary duties. Yeah, my care, my obedience, my loyalty, disclosure, accounting, confidentiality. I am legally bound to represent you. I'm your agent. By printing this out, though, what a lot of this information does is as you read through and you read through it again and you read through it again, you start to build a realtor arsenal of language. So now you're out at a function, you're out at the mall, anywhere, and now you start talking real estate, you know, because you've been looking at these slides. It just gives you just good information to set you apart too. So on these particular slides, this one and the following, understanding agency, I'll use the analogy of back in the olden days. If you wanted to find a house, you would have to drive a neighborhood and hopefully see the sign in the yard. You wouldn't know that house is for sale. You would then call that number. I want to buy the house. That agent on the other line would be very happy to sell you that house. However, he or she's fiduciary duty was to the seller. So the buyer being at the top of this ladder, all the money would essentially slide down and the deal would more benefit the seller because that's who that agent's fiduciary was too. Now, the deal would have probably went through, would have got keys to your house or to the house and everything would have been fine, but your best interest wouldn't have been really represented. On the flip side, in today's market, if we have for sale by owners, people that want to try their side of the property on their own, which is something that me as your buyer agent, we can definitely do. But it's the reverse because they are not a licensed realtor. They don't know really what they're doing from a contractual standpoint. The money would now slide down to the buyer because the buyer, you are being represented by a licensed realtor. The next slide.
Before you go to the next slide, I want you to point out the language in red at the bottom.
I don't know how to go back. Is that how? Okay. I might have got all the way out. It's okay. Be quick with it.
Don't skip the page, we'll get back to it.
It's not just me.
That's like when you were at McDonald's back in the day, you hit the wrong button, but the change. What? Back in the day, it was a button.
Just go down to the page.
Yeah, you can have like that.
Yeah,
Click on it
yeah,
and
right.
just-
Open up.
I know what you're talking about.
We know you do. I'm only 35. I don't know what you're talking about.
Just the babies.
I think I'm a habitual tab opener. My computer's a little slow. So if you are viewing a property with an agent and have not signed a buyer brokerage agreement, then by default, that agent represents the seller.
Talk about that a little bit. What does that mean for you guys? When you have a buyer and you're trying to get that buyer to sign off on your agency agreement, I want to hear what your guys' thoughts are about that. About that language and how you use it.
Explaining that language to them, just to understand, making sure that they understand that they're not being represented. They don't sign a buyer's agreement just because, just like we're helping them, or I'm here explaining to you about the buyer's consultation. You may have the misunderstanding that I now represent you, and that is not true. Until you sign a buyer's agreement, then you're actually under contract with the agent.
Definitely. Now Curtis just went over some fiduciary.
Right.
He went over all of that stuff. Now I'm the buyer. Break that down to me, how this piece in red applies to all that stuff that Curtis just said to me.
I can tell you this, you could go out, you could do all the work, take them all around, and then they can call their cousin, who's a real estate agent, and say, I'm gonna go with my cousin. You did all that work, thinking that we had something going, but we had nothing going legal because you haven't signed it. So you have no legal recourse to connected to me, and I've just done all that work for nothing. Because somebody else can just walk in and just take over and
Well, I think,
What else you got? And also, right,
go ahead.
no, also too, just like the fiduciary, when you are in contract, you owe them care, you owe them above yourself and above anyone else, you owe them confidentiality, you owe them obedience. And when you don't have that, that agreement, you owe them as a customer to be honest, or a client, customer rather, to be honest with them, but you don't owe them the other pieces of the fiduciary. Those, you need to make it clear to the buyer that those are things that are owing to a client. And for me to best represent you, we need to be we need to have a contract. We need to be in agreement so that I can best represent you.
What were you gonna say, Angela?
So
Very good insight.
I think before this slide was fiduciary, right?
Yes.
We talk about fiduciary and all those things that should be an eye opener for the buyer. These are things that they should want and desire when you're on that page. How could I move forward without having those things if you stress that importance? So by the time you get to this slide here, we start talking about agency, they want that. But this is that eye opener if at any part of this consultation, they, wonder, do I want representation? When you get to this part here, it's saying you want all those things, you're not represented. Sellers represented over and over and over, and you're not represented at all. So all those great things and valuable things that you want someone to protect this transaction and, lead you through it, you don't have any of it. So to me, the big eye opener is at this moment, when you get to that point, they should want to sign the document with you. So we do this buyer consultation to teach them how important it is, but we also want them to sign with us, and we're the one educating them and telling them about how important this is. So they're not represented.
Because of that, I can't really negotiate with them. I mean, you don't have anyone standing in the gap for you. You're really on your own. Even though you have me there, I'm really not there for you. Okay,
I'm just
so
there to open the
I'm just
door.
there to open the door and
Well,
all that, but
maybe we're not even there to open the door.
Right.
Maybe it doesn't get that far, because here,
Yeah.
this is letting them know how I'm gonna open the door for them,
Exactly.
because you work with your clients.
Right.
Right. And not only that, in the end, as far as the buyer is concerned, it's not, this is at most times little or no cost to you. So why would you not want to be represented in that
The
case?
biggest transaction you've ever.
Right,
Mhm.
probably the biggest transaction that you will make in your lifetime. So why would you not want to be represented?
A lot of times you run into this with family. Yeah, you know me, blah, blah, blah. I'm your cousin, my brother, whatever. And they just assume, that you got me in it. But what I try to make sure people understand is, at the end of the day, this is a business transaction. That's why there's a contract. That's why it spells out. I know we family and all that good stuff, but more relationships are broken and splintered because there was nothing in writing.
Curtis, do me a favor, will it mess it up if we go back to the next slide? If so, stay right
It
there.
will.
Okay, we'll just stay right there. We know what the fiduciaries are. I want to ask this as it pertains to, you said family. Are there any other buyers that are known for not wanting an agency agreement, but they just want to go see properties? Have you come across any buyers like that?
Yeah, investors.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody else?
Just there are people who, I don't have anything to do this
Right,
weekend.
right.
And dreamers.
Right.
Window shoppers.
Yeah, window shoppers and dreamers, and I mean, they are just, like, I love looking at homes. So let me just go.
A lot of them aren't qualified to buy.
Right.
Sunday after church shopping.
Mhm.
Right. My wife is one of those. You got nothing to do. Let's just go right.
And I can honestly say, I've not gone out with a buyer
Without having.
Yeah.
without a pre-approval until recently.
And that's a pool of buyers too. Right.
from those companies that want showing agents to just show
Mhm.
buyers.
Mhm. Yeah.
Now, I want us to think about this in light of the fiduciary that Curtis just talked about, all those different things. And how can we position those talking points so that the buyer, like Angela said, after this consultation, they know I need to sign this right away. When you talk about care and you talk about, of course, obedience, loyalty, when you talk about disclosure, accounting,
Mhm.
confidentiality, you talk about all of these things that if you are investing $500,000 worth of your money, don't you think you need fiduciary of accounting for where your money is going? You're gonna put in earnest money deposit of 5,000, 10,000, 15. Don't you think you need the accounting? You talking about your financial information and your position. What about confidentiality? So you're going to different properties to view and tour, and maybe you're working with different agents because like you said, maybe they just want you to open the door, but they're gonna go with another person. And you're going and you're disclosing your financial position or your motive to all of these different people that work for the seller, not because they want to, but by default with agency, they don't represent you and they can't until they have an agency agreement.
And I think one of the things that because this really affected me what Curtis was saying, sometimes you have to tell the stories of what people went through.
There you go.
Okay, because we know facts tell, stories sell. Our parents told us bedtime stories, not bedtime facts. So you want to let people know this is what could happen. This is what happens to someone else in this same situation. And this is how it turned for the worse. Like you were saying about
The money sliding.
Yeah.
There you go.
That kind of stuff happens all the time. And people don't know. They just assume everything is going to be, great. It's a beautiful day. Everything is going to be wonderful. But these are the things, especially now with all the fraud and everything that happens. So you have to protect yourself at all times. That's what they say in boxing. Protect your. I don't care if there's a referee and there's a bell, and you got to protect yourself at all times because that's just the world we live in now.
That's right. And I love how Curtis is going through this buyer consultation because he talked about, being licensed and the real estate commission and, buyer agency and seller agency and all those things. And I want to make sure that we have a passion for conveying that information to the buyer in a way that's going to leave that buyer saying, there's no way I'm leaving out of here without being represented. There's no way. Not just because it's a benefit to you, of course it is. But it's much more of a benefit to that buyer to be represented than it is for you guys. In terms of everything that they have on the line that you have to be accountable for. That's the first thing you owe. You owe them so many different things. And you can't just do something for the sake of doing it. You owe them care. So you have to absolutely care what's in their best interest. So there's so many different aspects of that fiduciary that when you talk about what they get out of having an agency relationship with you that they don't get if they're just agent hopping. And you bring to light, all those agents you schedule 4 showings on the last 4 Sundays with 4 different agents, all of them represented the seller. So anything that you share with them, and not because they have a listing agent, but just because agency says if you don't have a signed buyer agreement, then by default, you're a sub-agent of the seller. That's not her choice. That's not, we're saying, hey, I want to work with the seller. You want to work with a buyer, right? But agency has it such that they're a customer at this point. So you are a sub-agent of the seller. And that buyer needs to be protected. So these pages that Curtis is highlighting are so essential in this education piece because buyers oftentimes don't get it. For them, it's a matter of convenience and hopping and being free and things of that nature. But if they really understood the gravity behind what it is that they get from having an agent, then they would be under agreement yesterday. Very much like if you have a buyer, going up for a case and it was a $500,000 case, would they go to all of the different attorneys who they do not have a client privilege relationship with and share all of their information with all of these different attorneys who are, working on the other side of that case? That may be a way to convey to them the level of just pertinence of them actually signing off on that buyer agency agreement.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Before there was buyer agent, and what did they do to it?
Buyers were unrepresented. It was the wild, wild west for buyers. Only sellers were
Sellers open
represented.
the door.
Yeah.
So how did you even get a buyer if you weren't the listing agent and somebody didn't, like you said, go to the neighborhood and just call? How did you even get a buyer?
Just like you do now. People know buyers all the time.
Newspaper
People that want to buy
marketing.
houses.
Okay, so
Yeah.
do you want, okay, all right.
I just want to mention one concern I do have when it comes to working with buyers and taking them out. I think it's a very serious concern with especially the danger and not having anything in writing. You're dealing with that person on a one-on-one and you're taking them into these properties. If something happens to you or them, that's my concern. So I always stress that concern. I don't go out with my buyers until that agreement is signed. I will send you the automated listing. I will talk to you. I will give you information. But the minute we make an action where I am walking into something that could danger me and you,
Mhm.
I can't do that without an agreement. I am sorry.
So let's elaborate on that, because with the Porterhouse way, the only way we operate with buyers is number one, they have a pre-approval, so they've been vetted by the
Yeah.
lender. The lender has their social, he has their ID, he has their
Okay.
address, he has their financial information, credit information, so he knows who they are, and he or she has sent that information to you. Then we meet with them and see them face to face, either
Definitely.
via Zoom or in the office, so you know who that person is. And better if it can be in the office, so somebody else can see who that person is as well. We are very intentional with the way that we structure that for that very
Good.
concern.
For that
Yes,
concern, 'cause that's my concern.
there you go. And that's a very valid concern, and it should be for anybody who's doing it differently, right? When you have buyers that are coming maybe through another measure, that buyer needs to send you a copy of their license.
Yes.
That buyer, you need to have if say by chance it's a showing service or something like that, they need to send you a copy of their license. You need to have a video call with that buyer. If they're bringing anybody else with them, you need some type of identification for that person. And then at least one other person needs to know where you're going, and you should be there with somebody else as well. So for the sake of our safety, these protocols are in place. Yeah. But these are hugely essential to getting your agency documents signed. When you execute these pages that Curtis is highlighting effectively, then even if that buyer says, okay, well, let me take a day to read over it, they should be signing those documents. And you know, okay, well, I did a good job, or I did my due diligence at making sure that this piece made sense to the buyer. Because who on earth would want to go into a situation where I'm potentially transacting $500,000 and I have nobody that has
Your best
a
interest.
legal obligation to care, to disclose, to give accounting, to have confidentiality, to be obedient. Who in their right mind will want to put themselves in a position like that? I can tell you, a person who is oblivious to this information, a person who does not know any better, a person who does not know what they don't know. And that's why this is important for us to do, so that we educate and enlighten it. We educate and enlighten them.
Yeah. So, I mean, really too, because all the feedback is spot on, but I don't want you guys to get don't now let all of this kind of confuse or slow the process down either. So what we're doing, the slide prior is really now, here's the fiduciary. This is me legally bound to you as your representative. You kind of go through, this is how it here's how it can flow. This is why in the red, now you need me to represent you, right? And then you kind of keep moving through, because you're going to tie it in at the end, when now here I'm sending you the documents, making me your realtor that I mentioned prior to, right? So you're setting the stage, so I don't want you to think too, like, well, I have to tell them about this and I have to tell them, like, and this is how you craft it for yourself, because Kermod's going to have his swagger on it. He's going to, at this point, he's going to have that story. We're all going to have our ways that we can personalize it. And that's what this is too. The sign in the grass and the money sliding. I heard Shay do that years ago.
Yeah.
the signs I just keep saying that's what it was written in and that's what I kept reading. It resonated with me. I got it. And that's what I use that as my story to paint the picture. However, it will work for you. You could even say too, with, for my security, my safety, your safety, I want to make sure that I'm representing you, right? So you're just painting, you're setting the scene, and at the end of it is really, now it comes together. Because now here's the documents. I don't need you to, you don't really have to look them over. This is what it is. I'm going to tell you about the money. That's coming up. I'm going to tell you about this just legally binds me to you. Now let's go shopping. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you want to keep it too where we're just moving right along. I've had so many buyer consultations that afterwards, actually the one I just did, he had purchased property before. And he was just like, man, this is great. I've learned so much with the buyer consultation. That's why we do it. So it's then setting you up as the expert. I am the realtor. Even though you've bought a house before. This was 2010, 8, during the whole, but okay, you bought a house before, things have changed. Educating, informing, and they're going to leave empowered knowing that, okay, this person knows what he or she is talking about. Mm-hmm. Right?
It's amazing what you said, because when I first saw my first buyer's consultation, was Mr. Porter did. And I'm telling you, Mr. Porter, and he goes, Mr. Porter, but he goes through it so smoothly. The people were signing on their phone while we're in there. I mean, mm-hmm. they're signing their buyer's they're signing and the 795, all of that. So when we walked out of there, and I don't even know if they realized what it was so fluid. They had signed everything. So when the last thing he said, now he told them about the 10-3, he said, so here's your homework. And all they had to do was pick, we're going to send you some houses, pick some houses, and now we can, once we get your pre-approved, we can go house shopping. Because they already got pre-approved. So mm-hmm. We always talk about systems, save yourself time, energy, and money. And that's really what this did. And I learned that by watching him the first time he did it. And I couldn't believe he did. You got people signing. And he just assumes you're going to sign. Of course you're going to sign. That's right. It's not even a question about whether you're going to sign. He was just like, and this is what you do. And this is where you sign. And you're $795. And so because he made it seem like it was no big deal, they figured it was no big deal. And then it was done. So
yeah.
Structured in a way to get them to sign that buyer brokerage
agreement. Yep, right then. Yep, and let's keep it moving. That's right. We don't need to harp or dwell too much. You know what I mean? Like, because then the negativity or the thoughts can come in of like, oh, I don't know. Well, maybe I should. It's just part of the process. You know what I mean? Right. Yeah. It's good?
Yes.
All righty. So then when we get here, basically, for me, I'm like, all right, money can slide down to the seller if you're not represented. If the seller isn't represented, money sliding down to the buyer. Typically, now I haven't gone into dual agency yet, which I will, but because they're looking at the picture, more than likely in today's day and age, you're going to be represented by me as your buying agent, and the seller is going to be represented by an agent as well. It's an even playing field from that standpoint. The days of seeing a sign in the grass and calling that number, so it's pretty up and up, right? Someone's going to both parties are going to have representation. However, then I kind of go into dual agency, just talking about my personal experiences with dual agency. Haven't had a lot, but if we go out and we find that house that you're really attracted to, you want to write the offer on, if it happens to be listed by a Porterhouse Realtor, we have to disclose that. My fiduciary is still to you. I represent you. I won't be sharing any of your personal information. My fiduciary is still to you. And the same thing for my other Porterhouse agent. They're not going to just be letting me know what's going on their side, but we have to disclose that, and that's dual agency. Let's move it, you know what I mean? And we just, next slide. So at this point, it used to be more dramatic with the paper because you'd put the paper down or turn it over. Why do you want to buy a home? And so now you're really asking, what's up? Like, so really, Why do you want to buy a home? Because now at this point, you're really setting the stage of what's happening. You're about to buy a house, kind of whatever it is, you're buying property. Now, why do you want to buy a home? I did mention this at the boot camp. It's something that I continue to look into, and I think it's extremely powerful. It's question-based sales. Highly recommend everybody look into question-based selling. It is a phenomenal tool to have in your arsenal for selling. We sell every day. You sell, your kids sell to you, my kids sell to me. Oh man, my son is a expert. Like, he is so savvy. He's very strategic with his plays. You know, it's wild. And he actually wants to door knock with me. You know, yeah. So I was like, you know, we'll get it. Like, let's go. So we'll listen to we don't listen to the radio that often. We've been listening about question-based selling in the car when I take him to school, or like in the car when I pick him up. Because I look at my car as like it is my office. It is my school, because I'm in it so much. Even on the way here, I was watching YouTube on, you know, how to properly door knock. But so I say that because now, what do you want in a home? You're asking the question. The more questions you can ask, the more layers down you can dig, the more quality information you're going to get from that potential client. And this can be on the listing side. This can be on the selling ice cream at, like, it doesn't matter. Question-based selling is really this phenomenal tool that you can use. So you really want to now dig in. Why do you want to buy the home? You can make notes if you're a note taker, but you're just kind of making mental notes, getting them to really open up. Because at this point, you've kind of been leading somewhat the conversation, right? And I think, especially as realtors, we like to share and talk, right? So one of the things that I know that I have to do is to learn and to train myself to shut up, right? Is to ask a question and then pull back and really wait for the answer. There's a gentleman out there in Nevada, he would knock, somebody would answer. First thing would be like, "Hi, how are you doing today?" And he would wait and wait and then be like, "Oh, I'm fine." Well, that's wonderful. You know, I'm going to wait for the answer. Let me pull. And now there's a conversation starting to happen versus the knock and like, "Hey, you want to sell your house? I'm a realtor. You know, I'm not selling my house. The door's going to slam." Right. Really? Like, but if I'm like, "How you doing today? How long you been in the neighborhood? Is this your forever home? You know, are you the king or queen of the castle?" Now this rapport, this conversation is starting to happen. This dialogue is happening. So here, well, why do you want to buy a home? Do you think that there's going to be a potential investment property down the road? You know, so you just really want to get into the buyer. But I do question-based sales. So once we get to that, these next three slides are kind of like, I know this is Shay's favorite slide. This is his, and there is a training all on this. There's no way that I'm going to sit up here and try to do what Shay Porter does. But this really breaks down now the benefits of home ownership, right? So we got the FM, pay my more PF, PM, PMMFM. So pay my mortgage for me. So this is where you're really explaining the benefits of home ownership to the potential buyer. Within this, kind of like, especially if you're getting more into new at buying consultations, don't get too overwhelmed. Within this information, you want to pick out a few things that resonate with you that are going to be like your bread and butter, your sweet spot. And that's where you kind of go through principal and accumulation. So again, these stories, right? National Harbor. Back when National Harbor was first built, you could buy a townhouse around $400,000. I don't know if you've been to National Harbor lately. They're $1 million. That's appreciation, right? So more than likely, if you're in the area and you've been in the area for a little while, you've been to National Harbor. You may not have went there when it first opened. You might just be there because of the MGM Grand. But you are connecting with that. So in the beginning, for me, that was one of the main things because it resonated with me. I understood that. I understood that story. I would go there. I still like to go there. Don't go there often. Rosa Mexicana. It's really good. Frozen pomegranate. But so you pick out some things, and that's what you're going to confirm. This is prior to this slide. Why do you want to buy? Well, those are great reasons. And this is even more icing on the cake of why you need to buy a property, right? The next two slides are kind of my favorite parts of the presentation because it really breaks down the entire process. If you had to show nothing but the one before and then these next two slides, this is like the nucleus of home ownership. Going from zero to keys in your hand, this graph breaks it down phenomenally, right? Find a realtor you can trust. I always will wave. It's me, right? Yeah. You did that, right? Find a realtor. That's me. We're sitting here. Obtain financial pre-qualification. Analyze your needs in a buyer consultation. That's what we're doing here, right? So kind of taking them down to 1031. And now we get into the earnest money deposit, which we all know it's putting skin in the game, but I'll let them know I need a picture of a check. It's really important to say that, especially these days, especially if you're working with a younger buyer. People just don't have checkbooks, kind of like they used to. People do, but it's just letting them know I am going to need a picture of a check. So if you don't have a checkbook, go to the bank and get one. You can use somebody else's check if you have to, right? You would just make the notes on there, but you're letting them know now the money. Because at the end of the day, everybody, what am I spending? What's the money? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'll buy a house. How much? That's always at the forefront of people's mind is it's the dollars, the money. And this just breaks it down. So we go through, first thing is going to be the earnest money deposit. We're going to negotiate the offer. It can come back if there's any changes. Then once we're in agreement, you're happy, they're happy, it's ratified. Then I will let them know about the inspection contingencies and how speed becomes of essence, right? I will also touch on the big red folder. So you should have a big red folder, or if you have a thumb drive and you put all of your personal financial information in that folder. Your lender is going to keep asking you for that same information over and over and over again to a point where it's going to become annoying, frustrating. But the good thing is the more they're asking you, the closer you are to getting the keys to your new home, right? So then the next portion. What I will normally do, because really once we are ratified as the realtors, we kind of take a more of a, little step back. The lender, the money, now it's the money. Okay, I got you, we found the house. My fiduciary is technically completed. We are under contract, we're ratified, right? I'm just going to make sure that the transaction is moving along and things are moving how they need to be. But when we get to this slide, upfront monies, let's talk about the money. So for me being your realtor, all I charge or my brokerage charges is a $795 admin fee. We charge that for any client that we represent. I will charge my mom $795, right? The other thing I'll touch on now is the benefit of having the other benefit of having me as your realtor is essentially outside of the $795, I work for free. The seller pays my commission, which is 3%. In some instances, they might only offer 2.5%. And in that scenario, you would bring the other 0.5% to closing, but my services would only be a half a point for the purchase, helping you purchase your new house. Inspection fee. So I'm going to move through. And that took time for me. Even the $795, I would choke that out or not want to talk about the $795 until I've had transactions that it's like I should have had $7,000.95. You know what I mean? And it just, and it probably is what it is. It just takes, certain things happen, and it's like, nah, you know what? Yeah, $795, and I will charge my mom. Charge my mom $7. All right, mom, let's find it. So I'm gonna need $795 when we get to this point. It's the admin fee, the commission. So now, essentially, a thing that Shay would always like to would say too is the if it doesn't have a comma, it's not a big check, right? You're purchasing a house. So some of this stuff, because I'm going through, I would have mentioned even in the beginning of the presentation, you're buying a house, you're going to write some big checks. If it doesn't have a comma, it really isn't a big purchase, right? You're not buying a car, you're buying a place that you park the car at, right? So then the inspection fee, the numbers are probably going to be a little higher, but depending on the size of the property, I have an inspector that I can recommend. It's totally up to you, but I have a great inspector. They're going to come out. You're going to pay that. The appraisal fee. So now I'll go into the appraisal, what the appraisal entails, talk strategy with the appraisal. If we go over list price, if we are right at list price, what could happen if it appraises above, if it appraises lower. So I'll touch on that as now strategy that we're going to possibly employ if we need to. Again, it's making me, I am the expert. And I've had deals where I have used that. I didn't use it, but I closed the deal, right? So now, in essence, the money's kind of like all the chips are on the table at this point. The only other money that's going to be really discussed is going to be between this buyer and the lender. You know what I mean? But fees, certain things coming out of anywhere, everything's been really put out there. And then I'll even let them know that now the red folder, you're going to be termite inspection might be needed, a survey might be needed. The inspector that I use, it includes a termite inspection as part of his inspection. The benefits of a home inspection, title exam, title insurance. This is going to make sure that the title and deed, everything conveys at the closing so that Uncle Sam or Uncle Jojo doesn't come from wherever. I should have had rights to buy this property. This was my mama's house. All that will be cleared. Let them know essentially too, the CD will be issued 3 days prior. So this way you will see all the monies, where everything's going to go. Then we have our final walkthrough. We set up the actual closing, have our final walkthrough, and now you're going to take possession of your home, right? But these, I'd say and this is why I like the printed packet, the benefits of homeownership prior to this graph, those slides, those sheets are just really powerful, really important. And the one I have at home, I've even taken pictures of the Pay My Mortgage For Me, where I need to actually sit and read it and go through it. I've even gotten into the habit of writing. So the more you handwrite, which we don't really do a lot in this digital day and age, but by handwriting, my questions, rebuttals, things like that, handwrite, it burns it into your brain differently, So even I'll handwrite it a few times, read it. I've even gotten into the habit of using your voice notes, and then I'll read it. I have a mask I wear at night that it's Bluetooth, and I'll play back my affirmations and whatnot as I drift off into my sleep. But, this is like really, really good stuff. This is good information.
Point out something there that you heard Curtis mention that's essential for everybody to mention. When we talked about the commission part, we talked about all the things that we're doing to help that buyer to buy their home. This big investment that's gonna help them in so many ways. And it is, aside from that $7.95 brokerage fee, at little to no cost to them. So you heard Curtis say it might cost you a half a point, right? Or a 0.5% or something like that. But this is where I love the fact that he mentioned that. And I want to make sure that that resonates with everybody. So we shouldn't go through the process and not articulate that to the buyer. So they know that if you go see that house, home number 2, 3, and 4, all of them, that would be a 0.5 point that's going to end up on your altar, if you will. But that's the point in that buyer consultation where you're having that conversation up front so that there are no surprises.
And another thing to point out is if they are VA, well, congratulations. I work for you, 100% free.
And instead of free, no cost to you.
Right.
Because VA, you can't charge them a brokerage fee. You can't charge them additional commission. You can't charge them any of that. And then for short sales as well. Yep. So short sales in VA.
You can't even charge them the $7.95, right?
No, for short sales. Well, some short sales will approve that.
They will?
Yeah, some shorts will. The last one that we did, they approved it. Yeah.
Because
Get it approved.
Right. So the brokerage fee, they approved the 0.5% on the commission. They didn't approve. So with VA, you can't charge it at all.
You can't charge it?
With a short sale, I say put it on there and let them.
Tell you. Okay.
I say put it all on there and let them say take it off.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they'll let you keep it. Sometimes it'll come off.
Question from the
It's a statement or a situation I just wanted to share. So the January 25th, I think it was, I went to closing on a short sale. And that was one of the things that me and Mrs. Porter talked about because it was, I think the commission was 2.5%. And in the process, the seller, it was bank owned, came back saying that they were gonna only pay 4%. And I was like, say what now? So talked to her and she said just, submit everything, and just let them kick it back or whatever. So basically, long story short, we're here, we're doing the closing here, and I'm looking at the altar. And I was like, I got my calculator.
Trusty calculator.
I said, no, something right here.
Who were you representing?
I was representing the buyer. So I was supposed to get my 2.5%.
Right.
And the numbers did not add up. And she is so dynamic. Talking to the attorney, and he was like, well, I'm gonna have you to call this agent. Yeah, like, no, we're not calling them because we're contractual to 2.5%. So I need to, I'll be waiting on. When I tell y'all that man had that, she said, you could tell, you can have that conversation with him, but I need to. So basically, they were going to try to just split.
They were going to try to hijack Darlene for a whole percent commission.
Listen, I was like, say what? Wait a minute. Just not adding up.
And this attorney was going to try to bully her. Oh, well, you need to call and talk to so-and-so and make sure that that's okay.
Oh, yeah. That's why you always do a copy of it, when you're doing your buyer's offer, you put that copy in there. But, I'm like saying to myself, because when I was reading this and the listening agent never said anything to me. And I kept saying, not my monkey, not my circus. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, this not adding up.
Get Ms. Porter on.
Listen, and when I tell you just as nice and polite, I'm like, now I probably wouldn't have said it that way. She said, oh no, we won't be calling him. And when I say within 5 minutes, that email with the news, the CD, I said, wait, I was walking like George Jefferson.
I pulled a fast move on her at settlement.
That settlement.
Never
It's
got
like,
an
we gotta
agreement.
check our, those documents, so sometimes, you know, and he was trying to be tricky.
Yeah. Never got an agreement to change the brokerage commission, and that agreement from the bank was between the listing brokerage
Right.
and the bank. He didn't send over anything to the buyer's brokerage to say, hey, we're gonna change that commission, or no. So I told Darlene, even when it happened, you don't mention it, don't say anything, go to settlement, you're gonna get your full commission. That's what it says in bright MLS, that's what you're gonna be paid.
Right.
At that point, and I was about to collect my $7.95, but I could not do that. Was it the $7.95 and it was something else? Oh, I have to say, because I had already told her that, you know, she would be responsible for the 0.5%. So I couldn't get that half or
The-
Now
the
that,
It's a
$7.95.
short sale.
Mhm.
does it
It's a
make
short
a
sale.
difference whether it's VA or not, or was it just when it's a short sale?
Some short sales, but VA for short. You can't do
But
Whatever
some
they-
short sales will guide direct what you're going to.
Right.
But if her agreement with her buyer for the difference in commission. she
That
still
shoulda
can't
came.
collect the difference.
So it depends. If it's VA, she can. If it's
Right.
short sale, then if they say no, then it's no.
right.
So
Who says no?
The
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 bank.
bank. Yeah. So you're negotiating.
But I thought the 0.5% is just a contract between her and her buyer.
So Angela is 100% right. The 0.5%. So before we ever even get to the property, you have a buyer agency agreement, so that buyer is responsible for your commission. Depending on the type of purchase the buyer chooses to make, there's stipulations from that lender that govern what can be done with the money. And as it pertains to a short sale, if that lender says, because we're taking less than is actually owed to us, whether it's by 50,000, 500,000, or whatever, we're not gonna allow any other monies to be paid otherwise within this transaction. All the proceeds from this transaction are gonna be allocated to A, B, and C in these amounts, and we'll either forgive the rest or make the buyer pay it later, or we'll make the seller pay it later, but at the end of the day, we're not gonna allow any excess because we're taking a deficit.
yeah, right.
Yep, so the buyer has to agree to that in order to purchase that property. And if that's the case, then they are, everything has to be disclosed on that
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
Let's make sure
But
that
that
that's
buyer,
clear.
she paid a lot because she also had to pay an additional $1,500 just to use this short sale attorney.
So quick question, I don't want to belabor, but you said something about, okay, so let's say you're supposed to be getting 2.5. Okay, that's gonna be your thing, and you had said,
Well, I'm getting 3.
right, well, that's my question. Do you do that on every, so if it says 2.5, and you're saying that they have to bring the other
0.5.
0.5, do you do that on everybody?
Well, I do that.
Absolutely.
I do that out the gate because I don't know. At this point, we don't know. Sometimes the listing side will give 3.
So, because they still have to pay, because they still have to pay some fees. What if they tell you, no, I don't want to pay that, or I don't have that?
So I would say 9 times out of 10, you're not gonna have a problem with it. Every once in a, well, let me say it like this. If you cover this the way that Curtis is covering it, 9 times out of 10, you're just not gonna have a problem with it at all. Because when that buyer's purchasing a house, they're purchasing a house for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if your expense for that 0.5% is $1,500 or something like that, that is nominal in comparison to what the rest of their bringing. It's nominal in comparison to what they're paying the lender. It's nominal in comparison to what they're paying the title company. It's nominal in comparison to their loan fees and their taxes and all of those other costs. So what you gotta know is what your worth is in that transaction, because it's easy for us to look out for the buyer's dimes and say, well, the buyer doesn't have it to pay me 0.5%, but the buyer has 20% to put down on the house.
Right.
Another 5% in closing costs on the other side and all of these expenses.
Okay.
So you wanna make sure that you honor your hard work and your
Right.
money, and the way that you deliver it to them is the way that they're gonna receive it. So if your cadence is matter of the fact, it is what it is, this is the brokerage fee, this is the commission, this is
how it
what
works.
you can
Yeah.
expect for this, that, and the third, then they receive it that way.
Just like
But
you do with 795.
There you go.
Yeah, it
So
just
that's
rolls.
how you do it. You just roll with it,
You know?
and it's no big deal.
Yeah. Because you don't. At this point, too, you really don't know what the property is going to be. It could be 3%, and we don't even mention anything.
But in either case, it comes out in their closing costs.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. So because somebody might think, well, that's more money I gotta pay on, it's gonna come
That's
out
part-
in the
yeah.
closing costs.
And that is why it's essential to have a great working relationship with that buyer's lender and be in communication so that the first copy of that, also the first copy of that CD that they see has your fee on it.
Mhm.
Period. You want to make sure that it's not, oh, well, the first CD didn't have my expense on it and now they're getting one and it's $2,500 more. And now they're like, oh, no, Carmon, you just check that when there's a difference in that commission, along with a copy of that contract, you have communicated with the lender and with the title company.
And that's even when you send that ratified contract over, because I know we're ratified 2.5. I'm going to send that ratified contract. I'm also going to let the lender and title know I need my 0.5%.
That's right.
And at that point, if I didn't get the 795, I'll also be like, the 795 will come out at closing. And I didn't touch on this. Once we're ratified and I need now the real check, we need the real 1% payment, which is your first down payment on your property. I also need the 795 if I didn't get it at the buyer consultation.
That's right.
I remember you saying now with the way, because of the competition, we're doing 2% earnest money deposit, right?
We don't have to, so we can if it's competitive, but 1% has been working well.
Okay.
If by chance you have a buyer and they're in a bidding war and they have to make their offer stronger, you can do more of an earnest money deposit, but that's not something that we have to do.
I think it's always how bad does the buyer want it?
Yeah.
So I mean, because it doesn't go against them if they do 2%.
Because it's all coming. I mean,
It's just exactly how bad you want it. You want it, go 10%. If you got it, if you're liquid, go. Let's go. Big jokers. You know what I mean? We go for it. Like if you want the house, let's go. Let's lock it down.
As long as it's held with Porterhouse.
Right.
Okay.
As long as it's
Held with Porterhouse.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And let me just make that clear. You are not putting thousands of dollars, 2%, 3%, 5% of an EMD for any Porterhouse buyer at any title company, all right? At Porterhouse.
Regardless if it's velocity or not.
If it's velocity, it's better, but it's better at Porterhouse. Do you guys know why?
Because the fool has to sign to be able to get the money.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
It's
in our
protected.
fiduciary, go ahead, Curtis.
Well, it's just protected from the accounting standpoint.
There you go.
Yeah.
Spot on. We can protect their money.
Mm-hmm. And that comes back to where if the deal implodes, you know what I mean? Nobody can just take that EMD.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. But you can try.
Yeah. Because
Or
you have some people who religiously will put the money in the title company because they're used to title companies holding escrow and we get it. But we got to protect our buyers.
Mhm.
Now, if you're on the listing side, that buyer can put their money wherever they want. But when it's a Porterhouse buyer, we got to protect our buyers' money.
Mhm. Yeah. Cool. So we have do you have a question?
Just very big, a little funny.
No.
Or you can be like Darlene's client and just walk around the open house like he already owned the house.
He played that
You
house.
remember
He
that?
wasn't playing.
He was taking
Serious.
measurements.
He's like,
Measurements.
I'm doing my
It
thing.
was
You're in the
hilarious.
open house and you're taking
Or
measurements.
people coming in now, he's like, I'm not paying attention.
And at one point, we had forgotten he was there, and somebody, one of the other people that was coming through to look at the house, they opened up a door. He's in there like this. With the measurements.
So they think this house sold.
Oh,
Right.
he was serious.
He was,
And he got that house.
he got that house.
You claim that.
There you go.
Got that house. He was determined to get that house.
Good turn.
So then to move it along, 10 Commandments, again, something you read over. I like this portion of the presentation too, because it starts we just went over like a lot of money, gonna spend money. And now the 10 Commandments can kind of lighten things back up. You know what I mean? Thou shalt not buy furniture. Love dropping just different stories. One of my go-tos is the Beyonce. a week out from going to closing to get her, keys, charged Beyonce tickets, lost the house. So then we're essentially at the closing costs, side A, side B. So here too, also will kind of restate the importance of documentation, importance of getting everything to the lender, whatever the lender's requiring, because now you're in really like Michael Cooper's world. So you got a VA loan, you got FHA, conventional, whatever that is for you, you just want to be on top of making sure that you're meeting the needs and requirements so we can get to the closing table. Settlement preparation, we talked a little bit about the closing disclosures. But again, this now fraud, so we kind of let them know about the fraud, making sure that your wiring or whatever, however the money needs to move, it's moving how it that lender is asking you. And then we're going to set up the actual closing itself. And that's pretty much.
I've never heard this spoken to. You know, on there where it says minister and clergy.
I was just looking at
Right? Is that because of it that they're a nonprofit? What is that?
So that is lender language, and Mike would have to specify.
Okay.
What I do know is that, you know how there are gifts that a person can take, if you're a buyer, you can give your son a gift, your daughter, has to be immediate family. So your sister, your brother, your mother, your father, you can give them gifts. But if it's clergy, it doesn't have to be immediate family who can give a gift.
Church.
Yeah, if the church wanted
Or the
to do a
ministry.
gift or something like that
Okay.
to whomever in the clergy to buy their house, they can do a gift, although they're not immediate family members.
Okay. So one last thing, because Mr. Porter talks about this sometimes. When you have an LLC, can the LLC give you money towards the house where you don't have to really, because I know with a gift letter, you still have to show it's not going to be paid. When it's an LLC, is there any goes into that?
That is a Cooper question, because I can think of a couple different scenarios into that, so I would let him answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you're finished. Actually, now you're sending those documents
Right.
literally on the phone, because that's, again, like you were saying, sign it on the phone.
Right.
If you're showing them too, like, you know what, here, let me do this right now. Let me become your actual fiduciary realtor. Let me get in contract with you. Set them on the phone. This is also how you're going to submit your offer to me. So when we look at the properties, I'll send you the offer based on what we've agreed on, what you want to offer. It'll come through you like this because people are out. And a lot of people now, they've done a DocuSign or they're familiar with the digital signing aspect. It's just, here's how it's going to work. This is how the transaction is going to flow. So that a week later, 2 weeks later, wherever you're now writing that offer, this is how you're going to submit it to them. They're aware of it. They sign off on what they need to sign off on. But at the end, that's when I would send the document and then go into the properties. So what we really, do I need to adjust the search? Because it's wrapping up. It's, pretty much finished. Are there questions, et cetera? And then go shopping. All right. Cool.
Excellent.
Great job.
Thank
You are welcome.
Home.com.
Did anybody get any fresh perspective on anything this evening? Anything that you say sticks out to you a little bit more now?
I was just, flow.
Yeah, I was gonna say the flow of the process.
And I know just personally, it took me a while too to like my first few buyer consultations, especially on my own, stumbled on through this, but I stumbled on through. It was like, I knew enough too that, I mean, I know stuff, but the confidence. And it's just like, you know, like riding a bike, like anything, the more you do it, the more
Did you read it word for word the first time?
No, I kind of,
Had your own.
yeah, I knew enough to, you know, touch on bullet points. One of the first ones was I did it at Panera in Laurel. And I did the buyer consultation on a Wednesday. We looked at properties on Saturday and we were ratified on Monday. And it was, I think it was a $700,000 house. Yeah. And I felt really good. I was like, this is sweet. Right. But then that transaction, I filled out more extensions and it dragged on. Oh my gosh. And actually, the listing agent talked with Mike and even confirmed, he was like, if this guy sticks with it, right? Because he knew it was one of my first, it was like one of my first clients, right? He was like, if he can make it through, he made it through this. If he sticks with, he'll be good. Like he'll be, because it was random stuff. Like the seller, they had a house in New York. He slipped on ice. He broke his hip. So there was like my buyers were like messing up the getting the documents. You know, that's what I really, we got to get it to Mike. The gentleman would, the lady would just, it would just drag, you know, and now these days add, you know, you don't realize it, but now these days stack. So it's like file an extension, still dragging, file an extension. The guy broke his hip. In a way, it's like, okay, I don't have to file it's not my fault of filing the extension, right? It's because the guy, you know, he's in the hospital or he had to recover. So it's like, you know, but you land the play, you know, it's like, just stay in it, just stay in it, just stay in it. So it was one of those like, oh, it's so easy. This is great. And then it's like you get into the transaction under contract and it just wasn't easy. Oh, at all. But, you know, it's what it is. All good. You got a good story out of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Cool. So I don't know how you want me to just
You can ask Wanda first. She has any questions.
I actually did text her.
Oh, good. She's good.
In the chat, she didn't respond.
Close it out.
I'm here though. No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Something new or something different every time.
good.
Thank you, Winifred.
Take on the world.
That's right.
Okay.
So thank you, Curtis. We appreciate, that was extremely informative. I appreciate so much. Yes, that was. I appreciate that so much. All of that, just a refresher and some additional information that we received tonight. So thank you so much. We appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and we are going to say good night to all. You all have a wonderful evening, wonderful rest of your week. And one last time, we're going to say happy birthday to Mrs. Porter. And we'll see you all the next time. Take care.